You're watching Mission 360, where we take you around the globe to experience lives, places, and mission. Mission 360 brings you cutting-edge news and stories about Adventist mission around the world. So stay with us as we visit a world of mission. Today on Mission 360, we'll be talking with two people on a mission right here in North America. One of the biggest mission challenges we face is the growing urban areas of the world, where traditionally the Adventist witness has been weakest. So we'll talk with Tara, a pastor from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But first we're going to talk to Pastor Kevin about his work in the heart of Cleveland, Ohio. Let's see Pastor Kevin in action.
I was asked to come into the city of Cleveland and plant a church, and I was told that you need to live in the community that you're going to plant a church. Many pastors don't even live in the communities where their churches are. So I live less than a mile from this place. I live in the community. I shop and walk the streets and get engaged in this community. People know me. And what we do here won't work everywhere. I know that. You can't take and replicate this in New York City or in Atlanta, Georgia. Most of the people that I minister to here would not fit in a traditional rural, small town Adventist church. These people are low education, low income, been on social services all their lives, and you are not going to turn them into a middle class, educated Seventh-day Adventist. The people that I'm ministering to don't get it, and they won't get it just because I come in and give a health seminar or an evangelistic campaign. They need me to walk alongside of them. But I think that what we're doing here, at least in Cleveland and in the area that I'm familiar with, is reproducible. And it is effective. Now, as far as baptisms and all of that, this is a long-term ministry. Have we gotten baptisms? Absolutely. I've gotten, over the last 4 years of doing this, about a dozen baptisms that where people have come to me and said, I want to be a part of this. And so we take them through. And Eric is a great example of a person who came in off the streets, a person who was an alcoholic and destitute, who was homeless, and he was impacted by our compassion, not by our theological acumen. And today he is just an amazing example of what can happen if you spend some time and you care about these people.
Yeah, and I remember when I asked Kevin to baptize me. It was, I don't know, it just when first time I shook Kevin's hand, it was, there was just something there. There was just something about this place that kept wanting me to come back. And I'm glad I did. Like I said, it's, I don't take any credit for my sobriety. It was all God. Wasn't just me letting God in and doing for me what I can't do for myself, I wouldn't be sober today.
I was in church one day during the week working on some things, and I noticed, it was in the winter, there were some people out front at the bus stop. And I asked them if they wanted to come in for a hot drink and a pastry, because I had some leftover pastries. And that's how the breakfast ministry started about 2.5 years ago, was just simply inviting some cold people at the bus stop to come in for a hot drink. From that, we ended up with our breakfast ministry, which is now 4 days a week. We want to make it 5. We get from 10 to, today we had 35 people show up. Coming in, we serve them a hot breakfast. We try to serve them a healthy breakfast. Saturdays, we still serve a community meal. On average, we have about 1,000 community members who walk through the door of our church every month. Do people have a dependency on us because of our services? Yes, to some extent. But they know us by name. When people come in today for the food pantry, and I'm walking around, people are calling me Reverend or Father or Pastor or whatever. They know who I am and they know what we are. They know the name Seventh-day Adventist. They are not turned off by it. They're not offended by it. They frequently take our literature. We give away cases of literature a month because at our foyer we have this literature rack of all kinds of Seventh-day Adventist literature. We give away all kinds of Signs of the Times magazines. People know us. They connect the logo and the name, and they're reading our materials. And People are taking it because they want it, not because we send it to their door and they throw it away. They're coming in and reading our material, and the reason they're doing that is because they've got a relationship. They've put a face and flesh and bones to a name Seventh-day Adventist. And yeah, we have a great reputation in this community.
I have a flyer up here in case any of you are interested. We're starting Bible studies on Wednesday mornings after breakfast. It's open to everybody. So we'd like to invite you to grab a flyer.
You are not going to break into those communities, do a big event, and then just drive out. And if you've got a lot of people driving in, coming to that church, you will never make the connections in the community that we have done by being here, this ministry of presence. And that's the mentality or the message of ministry of healing. Jesus' method alone is that you have to walk alongside these people, and some of them for quite a while, to build trust, confidence, so that they can listen to what you have to share.
Thank you for joining us, Pastor Kevin, on Skype all the way from Cleveland.
Thank you for having me.
So, Pastor Kevin, how did you become involved in mission and outreach?
Well, I came to Cleveland as a church planter, and it took a while for us to figure out the community. I am not a city person. I grew up in the country, in a rural area, and I didn't understand the mentality of the city, and it took me several years and many, many different attempts at trying to break into this community so that we were effective. And so it's been a long journey of trial and error.
That's very interesting, Pastor Kevin. A quick question. How did you become an Adventist exactly?
Well, it was in '91. I was an adult, and I had attended my first evangelistic series probably 10 years prior to that, but I was a very stubborn person that the Lord had to take through quite a journey to get me to this point. But once he got me, I was quite a zealous follower.
Praise God.
So, why do you think there is a need for breakfast ministries in urban communities?
Well, I don't know that this is necessarily true in every community. I can only speak for my own. We stumbled across this by accident. One day I was at the church, and we have a bus shelter directly in front of our building. There were some people out there. It was a cold day. I invited them in for a hot drink and some pastries. And the next thing I knew, it grew. And pretty soon I was making scrambled eggs and pancakes. And there are a large number of people in our community who are on social services. We have a large number of homeless in our community. And they needed a place to go where it was warm, and feeding them was a logical next step. And there was no advertising. Once the word got out on the streets, we started bringing people in one after the other.
How can people replicate this in their own communities?
I've been asked that by a number of people in other churches in my community. What we do is not difficult, but it does require that you care about these people and not just as a means to hook them and bring them into your church. Ultimately, we'd love all these people to meet Jesus and to become baptized, but we have to treat them with dignity and respect. When we deal with people who are not necessarily middle-class, educated people, we sometimes look at them askew. We've got to change that and start looking at them with the eyes of love, like Jesus would.
Awesome.
But the best way, and I'm going to share my own experience, before we ever started something at our church, we went and volunteered at other agencies to find out about this type of ministry. What were other people doing? And I would suggest anybody who wants to start this is that you would volunteer with other agencies and ask lots of questions.
So, you talked a lot about heart and looking at people with love. So, if people want to help in a ministry just like this one, what can they do?
We have a lot of volunteers that are not members of our church. We actually sign up on a professional volunteer website, and people can find us on the web, and they can come and we instruct them and teach them about the different services that we're offering. But we constantly tell our volunteers that we treat our clients with respect and dignity, and we ask that they do the same. And it's amazing how we've impacted not just our clients, but we've had volunteers who were extremely positively impacted by what we're doing.
Now, when you're looking for volunteers, what type of people would you look for exactly?
Well, in our case, we would prefer professionals, but sometimes we get people sent to us by the courts who have to do community ordered, court-ordered community service. Schools sometimes require a certain number of hours, especially if kids are having troubles in school. We take them and we try to walk alongside and mentor these kids or these adults. It doesn't always work, and sometimes we end up asking them to leave because they don't follow our procedures or have the same understanding of what volunteerism is. But we've really not had problems finding volunteers. We have always had a surplus of people who want to come and help us.
So, Pastor Kevin, what is your real motivation behind all of the work that you've been doing?
I'll give you a term Mrs. White uses. It's called disinterested benevolence. It was part of my doctoral dissertation, and it has radically changed how I look at doing this type of ministry.
Wow.
Wow, Pastor Kevin, thank you so much for your insights and all the work that you're doing. It's great to have you here on the show. I hope to talk to you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
After the break, we'll come back with more urban mission in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Travel the world with Mission 360 to encounter exciting lives of missionaries who are reaching people for Christ. Watch tales of faith from people who left behind the comfort and familiarity of home to live and work in remote and strange places. These men and women of extreme faith will inspire your walk with God. To receive a free episode on DVD, call today or visit us online.
Mission to the cities is one of the biggest challenges facing the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's probably why 100 years ago Ellen White said that we have neglected the cities because it's so hard. People are busy, there are so many distractions, it's expensive to work there, people ask hard questions, there are rich people, there are poor people, it's very complicated, but it's so encouraging to see active, on-the-ground, holistic ministry beginning to happen and develop. And we're going to travel now to Philadelphia and visit with Pastor Tara Vincross and learn more about the ministry that she's involved in.
Welcome, and thank you so much, Pastor Tara, for joining us via Skype and from Philadelphia today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, can you please explain what Reach Philadelphia is and what it does?
So Reach is a church plant, and it's also an internship where we have young adults who are involved in ministry and in mission. We also have ministry houses. So there's several facets to this ministry. But basically, about 4 years ago, Chestnut Hill Seventh-day Adventist Church, where I pastor, we got together with the church board and leadership team and began to pray and wrestle with the scriptures and with what Ellen White has to say about reaching the cities. And just said, we need to do something more. We need to be able to reach those who are not being reached at this time. So we started this venture to plant a church and to engage young adults in mission and in ministry through this internship, and set up ministry houses in neighborhoods where people are getting to face to face with people in their communities.
Pastor Tara, that sounds amazing what you're doing down there. But what is the best way you found to reach that community exactly?
Well, where we started with was really going out and doing community needs assessment. So really asking the community around us, around the ministry houses and where the church plant is located, asking the question of what are the greatest needs that you see here? What are what are the resources that we as a community have to meet those needs, and how can we connect these pieces together? And so we started really our work through listening and through building relationships with our neighbors.
So I noticed that you said that you saw a need, but why did you personally decide to get involved in this type of ministry?
Well, we're here in Philadelphia and we have over 6 million people. We're the 5th largest city in the US. And when you look at all of the ratios for the other parts of our world church, we see that in some places there's one Adventist to every 92 individuals in the city, or some places like the North American division, it's 1 to 300 and some. But here it's 1 to over 600. And so we have so many people that are not being reached. And so we as a church, and myself personally, just really was asking God the question of, what is it that you want to do through us? What is it that we can do for your kingdom? And so really that's where it started, is we're willing to risk anything for the sake of your mission, God. So what do you want us to do, and how can we reach those who aren't being reached?
That sounds really exciting, Pastor Tara. But how could someone like myself, taking these principles that you've spoken of, become active in outreach in my community?
That's a good question. It really starts with us saying, first of all, I surrender to you, God. This is my life is your life. Use it for whatever you want. And I think there are some ways that through gathering with other believers that we can start to reach out in ways that we haven't before. So some are just speaking with coworkers and connecting with people in meaningful relationships. But I think it really starts with this point of saying, I surrender to you fully, whatever you would have me do, even if it means taking some risks.
So Pastor Tara, let's say a young adult sees this as something that they're interested in getting involved. What advice would you give to that young person?
Well, it depends where they are. If they're anywhere close, or feel the call to Philadelphia, I'd say come join us, because I believe it's that exciting what's happening here in our city, because we're seeing people that are just coming and getting to know Jesus for the first time. So I'd say come join us. But if they're feeling called to stay where they are, I would say really begin to pray and ask who else God might have in that community that wants to be a part of something, reaching out to their community. So it can begin with just talking with their neighbor, really starting to get to know the needs in their city and getting involved, just diving in, taking the risk. And with many young adults all across the division, as I've been talking, there's this real hunger and desire to get involved in a meaningful way. And that starts to be filled by diving in, by jumping in and saying yes.
So Pastor Tara, do you have an experience that you can share with us about someone that you've reached with Reach Philadelphia?
There are so many stories that I could share, but I'll just pick one. Angel was a student that came here actually for graduate school here to Philadelphia. There's over 90 universities in our area, so a lot of people come this way. And she started to get involved, and the Lord led her to have Bible studies with one of our church members, our Reach Philadelphia members, Rukia. So they started studying the Bible together, and Angel dived in and started getting involved with our Friday night meetings and Sabbath. And she made her commitment to Jesus Christ in baptism and joining the church. And she's just been so active and so excited about getting involved in ministry. And so she ran into this former classmate, and she invited her to have Bible studies. And she was so surprised, but she said yes. So she started going through these Bible studies with her classmate. And just this couple weeks ago, she shared this story at Vespers at our house. We have a Friday night Bible study and food and meal together. When Angel entered the doors, you could barely contain her excitement because she was jumping up and down. She was just excited. And she said, I've got a testimony to share tonight and I can't wait. So save my story for last. Every Friday night, I ask the question of how has God shown up in your week? And so she was ready when we came to that question. And she said, just this week, friends, my classmate accepted Jesus into her heart and surrendered to him as her personal savior. And you guys don't understand what kind of a miracle this is, because last week she was just asking me questions of, could God exist? How can God even be real? She hadn't been raised a Christian. She didn't understand who he could be. And so when she was approaching this Bible study on salvation, she's like, Lord, this person is not ready for this. How can I be doing this yet? And she just kept feeling God say, go ahead with it. And her partner Justin kept saying, it's okay, we don't even know. Don't listen to the voices in your head, listen to God's voice. And if he's leading you, let's go forward. And she said, as she was giving this Bible study and sharing from her own story with Jesus, she said, when she gave the appeal, the classmate that was sitting there just said, in response to the question, do you want to accept Jesus? She said, yes, I want to. And Angel was even surprised at the excitement in her voice. And so they bowed their heads and prayed, and she accepted Jesus into her life. And this is just one example of how God took one church member of Reach Philadelphia, led her to give Bible studies to one student she met, and then now that student is already reaching someone who was unchurched and hadn't met Jesus Christ.
Pastor Tara, once again, we just want to thank you for everything you shared with us, what God is doing through you guys down there in Philadelphia, and we hope to hear from you again.
Thanks, Robert. It's exciting to share what God is doing here.
Philadelphia is the 5th largest city in the United States. And if you were to look at a map of Philly, you notice that there are pockets of Philadelphia where there's no Adventist presence at all. And so we have moved in to West Oak Lane, and we live here, and we get a chance to experience the culture of our neighbors. We eat with them, we talk with them, we see them here on the road, and we get a chance to fellowship with them. And this gives us a unique experience and a unique dimension to be able to minister to our neighbors, become friends with them, and show them Christ.
This is the new frontier. It's like uncharted territory for churches, and we're moving into that.
You know, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And just to be part of the ones who are laboring and actually going out and seeking lost souls, seeking people for God's kingdom, that's why it matters.
Actually connecting with the people directly, and we just talk to them, pray with them. Anything if they want to set up Bible studies, they can set up Bible studies with us.
Here I was, not thinking I had anything to offer after feeling like I needed a revival. And God revived me and then made it so I can help someone else.
And I came all the way from West Coast to here East Coast, and to my surprise, I found a home away from home, which is very amazing.
If we don't pass the torch to the next generation, there ain't going to be a torch. And we are, as we get older, too willing to settle for status quo, and we become too complacent, and we kind of lose some of our adrenaline rush as we get older, and so we're happy for things to be the same week after week, as long as our church is nice and cozy and the way we like it. But this is a sin before God, for us to become complacent.
God, how can I show my love for you, and how can I put these words that I'm reading from throughout the Bible and put it into action? And it definitely helped me do that, because it got me out there working and out there putting my feet on the ground for working for Christ.
It is just normal people coming together and worshiping and praising God. And it matters because it is making a difference in the lives of everyone in this community.
It's a super inspiring thing that's happening, because I feel like it's a group of people who are really searching the Bible and really actually wanting to get out there into their community and reaching people all around them.
When we come to their doors, they're like, oh yes, I remember you from last week, and the fact that you prayed with me, and the fact that you cared about my grandson and my granddaughter, and you remember their names, and we follow up with them. And I think it's just great because we're building relationships with them, and I think that is the method that Christ had when he was here, is that he showed compassion.
Every Friday I look forward to that amazing meeting, and we've seen a lot of people come to that meeting who did not believe in God, and somehow they still keep coming. One girl actually, every time she gets into the car to come to the meeting, she says, why am I coming with you guys? Little does she know that God is just so exciting and amazing that he's drawing her to him, and she's completely unaware of it.
We were made to do this. We were made to live for God, to give glory to him, and to share who he is to others, and not just not do anything about it.
I'm so excited about what God is doing here in Philadelphia. It's amazing to see what happens when people give themselves wholly to him. Reach Philadelphia is about an urban church plant, raising up a church where one doesn't exist. It's about an internship, empowering young adults in leadership and in service. It's about an entire church community using every medium possible to communicate the gospel, the love of Jesus Christ and his soon return. But using literature evangelism,
music, public evangelism, art, friendship evangelism, to communicate his love to those around us. So I want to ask you to pray for us, to pray for what God is doing here in Philadelphia, and also to give yourself wholly to him and see what he does in your own life and in your own community.
Travel the world with Mission 360 to encounter exciting lives of missionaries who are reaching people for Christ. Watch tales of faith from people who left behind the comfort and familiarity of home to live and work in remote and strange places. These men and women of extreme faith will inspire your walk with God. To receive a free episode on DVD, call today or visit us online.
Well, that's it for today's program, and I'm glad that you were able to join us. And thank you so much for your continuing support of Mission through your prayers, finances, and personal involvement. For Adventist Mission, I'm Gary Krause, and I hope you can join us next time right here on Mission 360.